And opposition spokesperson on education and early childhood development and Member of Parliament for St. Catherine Northwestern, Mr. Damion Crawford. Remember, the annual sectoral debate is a series of presentations by government ministers where they outline the progress, plans, and challenges of their respective ministries. These debates allow ministers to showcase their achievements and set the direction for their sectors, typically focusing on specific areas. It's a mechanism for accountability and scrutiny of specific government sectors. Time is allotted for 2 sittings per week over a 6-week period following the close of the budget debate, conducted at the start of the new fiscal year in April. Based on the standing orders, any minister and any member of the opposition, selected by the leader of the opposition of course, is entitled to speak. If time allows, debate on the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority Act 2026, the NAR Act, is to be concluded. When making his contribution to the debate in the last sitting, State Minister in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Labourite, said the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority Bill is rooted in a moment of profound national urgency. NARA is designed to serve as the central coordinating authority for post-hurricane reconstruction, designed to eliminate bureaucracy, fragmentation, and project delays. It will also function as a center of technical excellence for project preparation and delivery, ensuring that the quality of national plans matches the scale of the country's ambitions. And that's what's on the agenda. It should be noted that elements of the day's agenda can be changed or moved. But before we go, here are a few things you should bear in mind if you plan to attend a session at Gordon House. No visitor shall create any act of disorder within the precincts of the House. No visitor shall be admitted to the House without first obtaining an admission card. Visitors who remain within the precincts of the House during a suspension of the session are asked to keep silent. No photography, videography, or sketching of the proceedings is allowed unless so authorized by the presiding officer. It's almost time to go to the main event, but before that, let's get the answer to the trivia question. We asked, true or false? No member of the House shall sit or vote therein, except for the purpose of electing a speaker, until he has taken and subscribed the oath of allegiance. It's true. That's according to the standing orders of Parliament, provided that any person authorized by law to make an affirmation instead of taking an oath shall be permitted to make a solemn affirmation in lieu of the oath of allegiance. It also states, quote, the oath or affirmation in lieu thereof shall be administered by the clerk immediately after prayers, and every member shall thereupon sign the book to be kept for that purpose at the table. End quote. Now over to the proceedings.
Peace begins with us. Every act of kindness, every step towards understanding brings us closer to a brighter tomorrow. Let's choose unity, compassion, and hope. Together, we can build a future where peace reigns.
Brighter tomorrow starting today.
Jamaica, let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We on the road to republic. Well then, let's propel we nation, moving forward in a new direction. True independence, that's the projection. No more dependency, it's the best plan. Yes, we know what's best for us, cause we want the country prosperous. So make we just pull together as the general public, while on the road to republic. Let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We on the road to republic.
A message from the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
We on the road to republic. We and the youth united against corruption, changing the world and the way we function. The youth united against corruption, changing the world and the way we function. You remember the youth, them are with future leaders, policy creators, decision makers. As if them are not just the cornerstone, but a crucial part to a better tomorrow. United against corruption, changing the world and the way we function. The youth united against corruption.
Message from the Integrity Commission.
Are you an entrepreneur producing an excellent Jamaican product or service? Did you know you can earn hard currency and more significant returns by exporting? Contact the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to help propel your business along the export lane.
Everything you can produce, the Jamaicans overseas want it. We're not going to get rich by just bringing down the debt. We're going to get rich by exporting a lot more. So grow exports, create job opportunities, drive economic growth through exports to make Jamaica a richer and much more prosperous country.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaica is changing right before our very eyes. Across the island, billions are being invested into our road networks, from farm and community roads to major roads and highways. Dozens of communities across the length and breadth of Jamaica are receiving access to reliable potable water for the very first time. And thousands of Jamaicans have become homeowners thanks to the historic shifts in policies of the National Housing Trust, making it easier for Jamaicans to receive funding. Not to mention the record number of houses being built. Never dreamed you would own a home? No matter your circumstance, home ownership is possible for you, thanks to the government's new social housing program, specially designed to meet the needs of poor Jamaicans at no cost to them. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
How do bills become law in Jamaica? Laws are made to create order, to ensure our safety, and to protect our rights against abuses by other citizens, organizations, and even the government itself. A bill is a proposal for either a new law or for a change to an existing law. Jamaica's Parliament is responsible for making our laws, and that responsibility is shared between two houses. There are 21 parliamentarians appointed from both political parties to the upper house, also known as the Senate. And there are 63 members of Parliament that we, the people, elect to the lower house, also known as the House of Representatives. To pass a law, there is a minimum of 6 stages required in each house. The process can begin in the upper house by a senator or in the lower house by your member of Parliament. And their proposals for a new bill can certainly start with you, the citizen. Now, since the process often begins in the House of Representatives, let's start there. 1. The first stage begins with the introduction by the minister responsible for the bill, followed by the first reading of the bill by the clerk to the houses. This clerk is more like the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer for the Parliament. An announcement of the bill is published in the Gazette. This is a public newsletter that the government uses to inform the citizens of what the Parliament is doing on your behalf. 2. The second reading begins with a summary of the bill by the minister. The main reasons for the bill are discussed both by the government and opposition members to determine if Jamaicans would really be better off with the new law or changes to an existing law. A vote is taken by the House to determine if the bill will move to the committee stage. Sometimes before going to that stage, the minister responsible for the bill can recommend the use of a joint select committee. It's called joint as its members are taken from both the upper and lower house. To benefit from greater consultation, the committee is empowered to invite the public to share their views of the bill in writing or in person. and does so through radio, TV, and newspaper adverts. This Joint Select Committee submits its recommendations to the House of Representatives. The House debates this report, and a vote is taken to determine if the bill should go on to the committee stage, where it is examined by a committee of the whole House. Yes, that's the name. And that's what it is, a committee of all the members of Parliament that carefully examines each clause and makes improvements to ensure the bill will achieve its objectives. As chairman, the Speaker of the House monitors the process to make sure the rules of the House are obeyed and the process moves along smoothly. 4. The Committee of the whole House examines the bill clause by clause, then sends its recommendations for changes to the House of Representatives. This is called the report stage. 5. The bill then passes to the third reading to allow a final opportunity for MPs to make changes before it is sent to senators in the upper house. 6 to 10. In the upper house, the senators go through the same steps we just described. If any changes are made, the bill has to be returned to the House of Representatives for their discussion and approval. Now, if the bill had started in the upper house, it would also have to be returned to them for approval of any changes made by the lower house. 11. Throughout the entire process, the bill is being checked by the Legislative Council. That's the Parliament's lawyer. But before the last step, a copy is sent to the Attorney General of Jamaica for final review and certification. 12. If all is well, the bill is sent to receive the royal assent from the Governor General as the representative of the Queen, Elizabeth II. The bill is now an Act of Parliament. The Act is gazetted, and the rights of Jamaicans are further preserved and protected by a new law.
When the storm rages and the world feels shaken, remember, our strength lies in unity. It's in coming together, sharing hope, and standing shoulder to shoulder that we find resilience. Every act of kindness, every word of encouragement builds a brighter tomorrow. We are stronger as one. Our courage, compassion, and hope will light the way forward. Together we rise. Together we rebuild, because hope is never lost when we stand united, because we are stronger together.
Hey, I'm Abijah, the Roots Man. Today, I want to talk to you about something powerful. Peace. Peace isn't just the absence of conflict. It's about kindness, understanding, and respect. It starts with us. Every choice we make can build bridges or burn them. Let's choose peace in our words, our action, and our hearts. Peace begins with you. Together, we can create a brighter and safer future for everyone. Join me. Let's be that change we want to see.
Nah, click on your link for my liquor brother pre that slap bro, we no need that. And the next thing them type a song they are listening online, what kind of thing that some big man pose up on them profile and a put chat to a small child. Watch yourself on social media when you a post back sis, no do nothing too wild. What if your little brothers in a post, yeah? What if your bro dead in another crime video, yeah? What if your little sister fe take a one pic and it a put up everywhere like it's a poster? Before I share the post, the pic, I ask myself, what if I nah comment, I nah go click me. For my ask, what if I? Nah comment, I nah go click me. For my ask, what if, so before you share the post, the link, just ask yourself, what if, yeah. When you're there online, make it a new day at the rhyme. Keep up with the time. Broadcasting Commission, I remind you.
Hi everyone, here are 5 benefits of being a beneficiary of the Students' Loan Bureau. 1. Benefit from our 99% approval rate. 2. Benefit from our low interest rate, so less burden when you need to repay. 3. Benefit from the fact that we require no collateral when applying. 4. We're giving you more time to focus on your studies while we focus on the financing. No need to worry about repaying while in school. Number 5. Receive a 14 months grace period after your graduation date before you enter repayment. Don't forget to follow us on all SLB platforms for more SLB info.
What if I told you that you own thousands of acres of land, more than 100 companies with over 100,000 employees and billions in the bank? Well, I have news for you. You do. Jamaica belongs to you, and you need expert protection to safeguard those assets for your future, your children, and your children's children. And you already have it. A key protector is our Auditor General, whose role is outlined by the biggest, baddest law in all the land, the Constitution. The Auditor General's main job is to examine the financial reports of all public entities to ensure that they are accurate and that public funds are used appropriately and effectively to deliver public goods and services without waste, theft, and mismanagement. Here's how it's done. A team of highly trained auditors reviews and verifies that the right amount of money is spent on only what's approved in the national budget and in accordance with the laws and policies that protect public resources. Now, the right amount of money can be spent on the right things and Jamaicans still no benefit. So the Auditor General assesses the outcome for programs and projects as well. Audit reports will also contain recommendations to improve the operations of the audited entity, and the findings are submitted to the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, the PAC. Every year, an annual report is submitted by December 31. Both government and opposition MPs serve on the PAC, and they summon public entity managers to answer questions so that they and the public, the real owners, yes, you, can understand what went wrong and how to prevent a recurrence. What are some things that can and do go wrong? Cost and time overruns, missing financial reports, unreported losses, unauthorized spending, unsupported payments, unlawful contracting, undisclosed conflict of interest, and more. Though the AG identifies the abuse of laws and policies, the law does not empower that office to penalize or sanction, but it does empower the Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance. It is also the duty of other anti-corruption and law enforcement bodies to grab the button and investigate to ensure penalties are applied when appropriate. But the AG alone can't watch all. So when things don't look straight, the Minister of Finance, members of Parliament, Cabinet, public servants, and importantly, you must blow the whistle and the AG will look deeper. So this is where you come in, with 4 things you can do to strengthen those who are fighting to protect our future. Tune into PPCJ on Tuesdays for the PAC and mind your business, Jamaica. It's our belongings, but we have to move like we understand that. And next time you hear a news report about the AG, you just left it up to the media. Visit the AG's website at www.auditorgeneral.gov.jm and check out the findings yourself. Then, keep track of how the government has fixed the issue, or not, at www.jampja.org's Accountometer. And if you're not happy with what you see, it's your job to contact your employees. It's easy when you visit the MP tracker on jampja.org. This is how we can do our part to make Jamaica land we own, Jamaica land we love, and Jamaica land we run well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter portal, funded by the European Union and UK Aid.
Dengue is ordinarily a mild disease. Persons may get a fever, headache, joint and muscle pains. The illness is often resolved through rest and adequate hydration along with paracetamol to treat the accompanying fever. However, on occasions, the illness can progress to severe dengue, which can result in organ failure, bleeding, and severe fluid depletion that can lead to shock and even death. Therefore, it is important for persons who are experiencing fever, vomiting, severe abdominal pain, bleeding under the skin, feeling very weak, or getting confused to seek immediate attention. Let us work together to protect ourselves against dengue.
Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign, and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom and understanding, we thine unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations, and grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, just prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the king, the public weal, peace and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same in true Christian love and charity one towards another, to Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
You may be seated. This Honourable House now resumes its sitting. I wish to sincerely welcome all members to the sitting of the Honourable House of Representatives for today, Tuesday, April 28, 2026. Today, we continue with the sectoral debate in addition to the usual business of the House, and as always, it is expected that members will maintain the standards of this Honourable House in accordance with the standing orders and established practice and procedures. Today, we are joined by a delegation from the World Bank, who is in the gallery, and we are also joined by a delegation from Rwanda. They are seated to my left. The delegation from Rwanda is here in Jamaica working with the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs to conduct an in-depth needs assessment for the implementation of an integrated electronic case management system, which is to be used right across Jamaica's justice sector. The delegation is being led by Honorable Rukunda Kuvuga, President of the Court of Appeal of Rwanda. And he is accompanied here today by the CEO and CFO, respectively, of Rwanda's Cooperation Initiative. I ask that you make them all feel welcome. I'm going to make the effort. The names are Mr. Richard Niwinshuti and Mr. Freddie Makunza. I hope I got those correctly. Also present here are our permanent secretary, Grace and Stuart McFarlane from the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, who is seated to my right. Members, joining us also in the gallery in support of their members of Parliament who will be contributing to today's debate are members from their constituency, and in the case of Minister Samuda, who presents today, persons from the ministry he leads. In addition, we seem to have close to a full house. I will say we have our regular visitors and friends with us in the gallery. You're reminded not to participate by clapping or knocking the desk during today's sitting. Members also joining us, as they do every week, are our viewers on PBCJ and viewers on the other various media platforms. Let's hope you will all enjoy today's sitting of the House, which intends to be a very long one. Thank you. Call of the roll.
Mr. Clark? Here. Mr. Green? Here. Dr. Honus? Dr. Chang? Mrs. Williams? Mr. Bartlett? Ms. Grange? Dr. Tufton? Here. Mr. Mackenzie? Mr. Montague? Here. Mr. Darrell Vaz? Here. Mr. Delroy Chuck? Here. Mr. Charles? Here. Mr. Morgan? Here. Ambassador Marks? Mr. Samuda? Dr. Wheatley? Mrs. Cuthbert-Flynn? Mr. Terrelong? Mr. Witter? Mrs. Dalrymple Philibert? Ms. Morrison? Ms. Lee? Mr. Donovan Williams? Mr. Main? Ms. Crawford? Mr. Delroy Williams? Ms. Hamilton? Mr. Seawright? Mr. Azan? Mr. Brown? Dr. Brownberg? Mr. Buchanan? Mr. Bunting? Ms. Burchell? Dr. Campbell? Mr. Cousins? Mr. Crawford? Ms. Daly? Dr. Dawes? Mr. Golden? Mr. Gordon? Mr. Hales? Mr. Hines? Mr. Ilton? Mr. Jackson? Ms. Jess? Mrs. Malahoo Fort? Mrs. Miller Bennett? Mr. Morris? Mrs. Nita Garvey? Mr. Newell? Mr. Paulwell? Mr. Phillips? Ms. Perkis? Mr. Robertson? Mr. Robinson? Dr. Russell? Ms. Shaw? Mr. Smith? Mr. Dwayne Vaz? Mr. Warmington?
Permanent Secretary here, Mr. Wayne Robertson. Mr. Wayne Robertson, the Permanent Secretary, seated to my right for the Ministry of Water and Environment. I note also former Member of Parliament just joined us, Mr. Michael Stern, and I see some of our senators here in the chamber as well. I thank you for coming to lend your support to the sitting of the House today. Senator Rose Bennett Cooper and Senator Elon Thompson. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, first let me join with you in welcoming the delegation from Rwanda who are here on a very important mission in relation to our court system and its digitization. I think all of Jamaica is really looking forward to the implementation of a system that you have in Rwanda that has clearly served your people well in the ease of interacting with our justice system. So welcome, President of the Court of Appeal and members of your team, and we hope you will enjoy your time here in Jamaica. We know your President visited and had a very good time when he was here. Madam Speaker, it is suggested that we go straight to public business and start with our sectoral debates, and then we will go back to the other matters that we have to do. We are looking forward to continuing our sectoral debates today, where we will start with the Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change, a new ministry but a very seasoned and hard-working and competent minister, the Member of Parliament from St. Ann North East, the Honourable Matthew Samuda, and then he will be followed by the Member of Parliament for St. Catherine North Western, Mr. Damion Crawford. So, Madam Speaker, if it pleases you.
Thank you, House Leader. We would have, let me first ask that we vote to move straight to public business, and then we will recommit all the items on the agenda. Those in favour? Those against, the ayes have it. The time limits already having been established in our sitting last week will not need to be repeated. Please be reminded of the time limit. I will repeat it. It would appear for the last time for the benefit of everyone. So, ministers, your usual time is 45 minutes, and an additional 15 minutes has been approved, so your limit is no more than 60 minutes or an hour. And in the case of the opposition spokesperson, it is 30 minutes, and you get an extra 5 minutes, so 35 minutes. Members, please, I will be adhering strictly to the time. Please make welcome the Minister of Water and Environment. The Minister represents the seat of St. Ann North East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister, I am sorry to interject. For the benefit of all the members, when your time is up, you will only hear the bell go off so that you will recall that you are now going into additional time. I'm asking you to just continue with your presentation. Don't have the bell break your stride. Just continue when it goes off. You guys major in the minor a lot though.
Madam Speaker.
When the buzzer goes off, since you don't like ringing the bell, because it's a bell. Yes, anything you would like. So when the buzzer goes off, you will just continue in good stride. And you do not need to sit or wait for additional time. So you're comfortable continuing your presentation. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I
rise today to make my contribution to the sectoral debate in this honorable House. I'm privileged to stand here, firstly, because of the blessings of the Almighty, but secondly, because of the trust placed in me by the constituency of St. Ann Northeast. I pause to acknowledge my councillors, constituency executive, management team members who are present here today. I also use this opportunity to etch in the annals of history the work, the impact, the ambition, and the intended legacy of the young but dynamic Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change that I now have the honour and privilege to lead. I welcome senior members of the Ministry to the Parliament today, including the Permanent Secretary Wayne Roberts and our Director General Sharon Morrison, CTDs and team members who are also here today. I also welcome members of the boards of management and senior team members of the agencies and departments also under my supervision. Madam Speaker, I also use the opportunity to welcome guests from the World Bank Water Sector team who are in Jamaica on a particular mission but have joined us this afternoon. We extend welcome to them as well. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the Most Honourable Prime Minister for the trust he once again placed in me to manage these critical subject areas. Madam Speaker, there are many persons who deserve an expression of profound gratitude. It is my hope that they are not slighted by the lack of mention because of the time constraints this afternoon. Madam Speaker, as I begin, I pause to reflect on the words of the Most Honourable PM when he made it clear that this government and this budget is about building forward together and that we are moving from simply resilience to resurgence. This resurgence is the precise intention of this ministry, an intention, Madam Speaker, that will be made real through intentional service, environmental stewardship, and the development of climate-resilient water systems. Madam Speaker, the ministry was created because climate change, water security, environmental protection, forestry, ocean governance, and the blue economy required dedicated singular focus. Madam Speaker, I'm proud to report that in what can only be described as a remarkably short period, that through partnerships coordinated by this ministry, we have already mobilized tens of millions of US dollars in climate and adaptation financing, coordinated a national recovery of major water systems after the most disruptive disaster ever recorded in Jamaica, provided timely information before, during, and after Hurricane Melissa that not only saved lives but also gave our people hope and guidance. Importantly, Madam Speaker, this ministry has also allowed Jamaica to assume leadership roles in the global environmental agenda and entrenched our position as a credible, bankable partner and thought leader in global climate and environmental stewardship. I reiterate and emphasize, not only for the members of this House, but moreover for the people of Jamaica, that climate resilience is not an expense. It is an investment in Jamaica's survival, stability, competitiveness, and indeed our resurgence. Madam Speaker, the challenge is great, but the resilience and ingenuity of the Jamaican people are equal to the task. Madam Speaker, I'm also pleased to advise this Honourable House that all boards under the purview of this ministry have been duly gazetted. Cabinet approval has been received and board members have been appointed, ensuring that the governance structures responsible for overseeing our agencies and delivery of this critical program are fully constituted and operational. Madam Speaker, today I will provide an update on Jamaica's climate change agenda. This is not simply a policy discussion. It is about protecting livelihoods, strengthening economic resilience, and ensuring that Jamaica remains prepared in the face of intensifying climate impacts. Madam Speaker, over the period of 2020 to 2025, Jamaica has experienced an escalation in climate-related events. The passage of Hurricane Beryl in July 2024, Hurricane Melissa in October 2025, resulted in widespread damage and disruption across several parishes. These events, alongside severe drought conditions between 2020 and 2023, caused significant damage to infrastructure, agricultural and coastal systems, while having a severe economic impact. Road networks, water systems, and electricity infrastructure were impacted. Smallholder farmers and experienced crop losses, and coastal communities face storm surge, flooding, and erosion. These impacts are not isolated. They directly affect productivity, food security, and national stability. Madam, every dollar spent on recovery is a dollar diverted from the development agenda. And this is why climate change must be treated as a core economic issue. Madam Speaker, Jamaica strengthened its climate governance net framework in 2023 through the approval of the Climate Change Policy Framework and Emissions Policy Framework. These provided a coordinated national approach across sectors. Madam Speaker, the development and passage of climate change legislation will mark a significant step in strengthening Jamaica's governance framework. The Ministry is partnering with the UK FCDO to deliver this legislation, which will provide legal backing for climate policies and ensure accountability across sectors. This is essential for delivering sustained and measurable outcomes, greater transparency, and improved policy implementation and increased investor confidence. This legislation is expected to be complete this fiscal year. Madam Speaker, Jamaica's long-term emissions reduction and climate resilience strategy, or otherwise referred to as our LTS 2050, completed in July 2025, represents our vision for Jamaica as a climate-smart, resilient country. The strategy outlines Jamaica's pathway to achieving net zero emissions by or before 2060, while ensuring that economic growth remains inclusive, sustainable, and resilient. Madam Speaker, what distinguishes the LTS is not solely an environmental strategy, it is a developmental strategy. It focuses on a whole-of-economy approach and includes focus on the energy systems, transport, agriculture, infrastructure and urban development, as well as forestry and ecosystems. The LTS projects approximately $13.9 billion in net economic benefits by 2050, along with the creation of 26,000 jobs, particularly in green and emerging sectors. Madam Speaker, these are not just projections. They represent a shift in how Jamaica positions itself in the global economy. Importantly, the LTS is aligned with our NDC and other national priority policies, ensuring coherence across short and medium and long-term planning. Madam Speaker, in 2025, ahead of the deadline, Jamaica also submitted its nationally determined contributions to the UNFCCC, which is a requirement of the Paris Agreement. This, Madam Speaker, saw an ambitious target of Jamaica committing to 41% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2035, relative to a business-as-usual scenario. Our NDCs focused on energy, transport, forestry, and land use, and for the first time took a valuation of the carbon capture capabilities of our mangrove forests. Madam Speaker, between 2024 and 2026, Jamaica advanced its approach to food security through the development of a climate-informed, multi-scale mapping system in partnership with RADA and the Climate Technology Center and Network under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. MWEC led the project, raising $250,000, but partnered very closely with RADA, Madam Speaker. This is important for centralized data on agriculture, climate risks, and food security, allowing decision-making at multiple levels, national, parish, and community. This means we can now identify with much greater precision the areas most vulnerable to drought, flooding, and production shocks. Madam Speaker, the Adapt Jamaica project represents a major investment in climate resilience for the agriculture sector. With US $50 million secured through the GCF, this initiative will benefit over 700,000 Jamaicans, particularly smallholder farmers and rural communities. And the member from Southwest St. Elizabeth can attest to the fact that $40 million of this is indeed grant funding. For that, we are particularly proud. This project targets the strengthening and resilience of the agriculture sector, and we are also supporting income generation. This initiative demonstrates how targeted investments can deliver both environmental and socio-economic benefits. Madam Speaker, the government has transitioned from planning to implementation on its electric mobility. On January 20th, 2026, a validation workshop confirmed the structure of a pilot program under the NDC Technology and Economic Cooperation Program. This program has deployed 3 standardized 12-meter battery electric buses across UTEC, CMU, and HART. These buses are designed to meet real demand with passenger loads ranging from 25 to 50 persons per trip and daily travel distances up to 240 kilometers. Madam Speaker, we further focused on developing what is called JA-NAP. This is our National Adaptation Plan. In this regard, the development of Jamaica's first comprehensive NAP, or JANAP, represents a critical pillar of our national response. This work is being advanced in collaboration with the PIOJ and is a priority for completion this financial year. Madam Speaker, the JANAP is not simply another policy document. It is an implementation framework. It is designed to move us from fragmented, project-based interventions to a coordinated whole-of-government approach to resilience building. The plan focuses on sectors such as water, agriculture, coastal zones. Madam Speaker, the strength of the JANAP is that it is being implemented by the PIOJ, who also developed the JSRAT tool, which is a systemic risk assessment tool. Therefore, the NAP will be grounded in data, risk assessment, coordinated vulnerability mapping, economic analysis, and climate projections to ensure that investments are targeted where they are most needed. Importantly, Madam Speaker, it integrates gender considerations, stakeholder engagement, and investment planning. Madam Speaker, the development of carbon markets, of our carbon markets framework, presents a significant opportunity for Jamaica to access new revenue streams while encouraging the growth of clean technology developments and installations across various sectors by participating in global carbon markets. Jamaica can attract investments and simultaneously support emissions reduction projects. For local businesses and entrepreneurs, this framework creates opportunities to participate in the green economy, as among other things, it supports technology transfer and economic diversification. Madam Speaker, we intend to finalize this framework this year. I won't speak much about the Loss and Damage Fund because I would have provided a statement to this Honourable House before, but just as an update, the country has submitted its first request for funds from the Loss and Damage Fund to the tune of $20 million US, and we expect a formal decision in June of this year coming from the damage of Hurricane Melissa. Madam Speaker, the government, through the Development Bank of Jamaica, continues to push the throttle to position Jamaica to better access global climate finance opportunities. By aligning with international financing goals, Jamaica will be better equipped to secure the resources needed for national development. Madam Speaker, Jamaica will this year complete preparations for the launch of its own Blue and Green Fund to be housed at DBJ. We expect this to be primarily financed by the GCF, and Jamaica targets over $150 million investment in this fund that will finance blue and green projects across varying sectors. Madam Speaker, the state of the environment. The global context is unambiguous. The United Nations Environment Programme has characterized our predicament as a triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. These are not abstract threats. They are converging risk multipliers. Climate change intensifies storms and droughts, biodiversity loss erodes ecosystem services like coastal protection and food security. Pollution of both air, land, and of course marine undermines public health and economic productivity. Small island developing states like Jamaica are on the front line. Sea level rise, coral bleaching, coastal erosion, and extreme weather events impose fiscal burdens and disrupt livelihoods. Our policy posture, therefore, must be anticipatory, science-led, and economically disciplined. This you have heard from me in this House before, Madam Speaker. However, I think it's important this afternoon to introduce the concept of planetary boundaries in this Honourable House. This graphic shows the current state with only two boundaries globally not being exceeded. The planetary boundaries framework highlights the rising risk from human pressure on 9 critical global processes that regulate the stability and resilience of the Earth. Crossing boundaries increases the risk of generating large-scale, abrupt and irreversible environmental damage. The impacts of these changes will not necessarily be immediate or drastic, but together the boundaries mark a critical threshold for risks to society and the biosphere we are a part of. Members of this House and those listening at home should be clear that this is already having an impact on Jamaica. But, Madam Speaker, I also believe we must be unambiguous in acknowledging the current state of our environment. In some areas, Jamaica has led the world. In other areas, we are behind. Only by acknowledging the problems, similarly to the way the MHPM and indeed the DPM have approached crime in this country, can we solve them. Above is Jamaica's ranking as assessed by Yale University in their 2024 assessment. Jamaica sits at 68 out of 180 countries assessed in the overall ranking. Good. However, important for us to confront the areas in which Jamaica is not assessed to be progressing at the right pace. For colleagues' information, areas such as climate change we're ranked number 23 in the world in our management of the subject. Marine protection, 27. But there are areas of particular challenge. Certainly, waste management, our red list index, we are at 164 and 138 respectively. So this gives you an idea of where we have to focus. The areas we're doing well, we want to entrench the work. The areas we're not doing well, we want to invest more and give greater focus to ensure we move up the ranking and indeed protect our environment. Jamaica's standing provides a useful benchmark. While we have had gains in areas such as protected area coverage and indeed waste management and ecosystem vitality, the EPI underscores a central truth. Incrementalism will not suffice. We require systemic interventions, better enforcement, stronger data systems, and targeted capital investments. Our current regulatory focus. Our regulatory framework is anchored by the NRCA Act and administered through NEPA. Complementary statutes include the Wildlife Protection Act, the Forestry Act, the Water Resources Act, the Beach Control Act, and the regulations governing air emissions, effluent discharge, and solid waste. And that's important to understand. The present focus is threefold: enforcement integrity, standards modernization, data and transparency. Madam Speaker, that is why I'm happy today to have tabled in this honourable House the overarching protected areas policy white paper, which is within your package, and the draft keys management policy green paper. The overarching protected areas policy will replace the 1997 protected areas policy and will provide the policy direction for the effective management of the country's protected area system. It should be noted that the island has over 350 protected areas, including national parks, marine parks, fish sanctuaries, forest reserves, and forest management areas, which have been declared under various pieces of legislation. Madam Speaker, in further bolstering the country's environmental legislative framework, the Ministry, in collaboration with the Forestry Department, is advancing the repeal and replacement of the Forest Act. This new piece of legislation will include provisions that specify transfer of land, inventory, and the classification of forests and forest land, and a declaration of a no-burn season. I'm happy to report that the Forest Bill is before the Legislative Committee of the Parliament and will be tabled in a matter of weeks. Legislative Committee of the Cabinet. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the Ministry will be advancing the amendment of the Wildlife Protection Act. In this regard, a draft bill has already been prepared and is being reviewed. It is my further intention to have this bill tabled before the end of Q1 of this financial year. Madam Speaker, the passing of this bill will clear the path for honouring of the government's commitment to finally ratify the SPA protocol. Madam Speaker, additionally, the government will complete the long-awaited environmental impact assessment regulations under the NRCA Act this fiscal year. Madam Speaker, our strategic environmental focus, and I have circulated the digital document, focuses on several areas, including increased protection and indeed waste separation, emissions focus on air quality, and of course improved beach access. And I will go through them as quickly as possible considering the time. But Madam Speaker, I do want to bring colleagues' attention to the fact that this year the government will complete 5 new protected areas, including sections of Bengal, the Negril Environmental Protection Area, Long Mountain, Montpelier, and Canoe Valley will be completed this fiscal year. Additionally, the Ministry, in collaboration with the Forestry Department, has declared 17 new forest management areas under the Forest Act last year, in the last just concluded financial year, and is working on finalizing the declaration of 22 new forest reserves, which I intend to table in the House in the second quarter of the fiscal year. Madam Speaker, colleagues would recall a discussion we would have had in this House related to the declaration of the Constant Spring Golf Club as a forest management area to preserve the green space for generations to come. I'm happy to report that the document is at the printing office to be gazetted, so that commitment represents a commitment which has been kept. Jamaica has already protected 25% of its landmass and 15% of its EEZ. We expect to complete the 30% target, which is in line with global standards, well before 2030, and we are working to catch up on our marine protected areas. Madam Speaker, Jamaica's waste stream remains largely commingled, driving landfill pressure and marine leakage. We are implementing source separation, organic, recyclable, and residual streams, supported by public education, infrastructure rollout, and private sector participation. Madam Speaker, the government this year will advance a full national pilot for waste separation in public facilities. Madam Speaker, another area of concern is air quality. It is a public health imperative. We are tightening emission standards at stationary sources, enhancing vehicular inspection regimes, and piloting low-cost sensor networks to complement reference grade monitors. The policy objective is measurable to reduce PM2.5 and nitrous oxide exposure, especially in urban corridors and near industrial clusters. Madam Speaker, the government will advance plans for the introduction of tailpipe testing this year. Another issue that has dominated public discourse is the issue of beach access. Now, I believe it may be easier to have a ministerial statement to go through this particular section at a later date, but I would like to make a few points in summarizing the section that I have, even though I've circulated my notes on the subject. The Beach Control Act was passed in 1956 and was amended in 1973. 1973's amendment moved us to a licensing-based system. The policy attempt started in 1997 to deal with the access issues and was largely abandoned in 2000 because of a lack of consensus. So what you have is a period of policy blackout. What we have sought to accomplish with the new beach access policy and evolving the arrangements related to the licensing regime is to ensure that access is no longer incidental, developers are now part of the solution, and the policy is indeed implementable. Though the Beach Control Act still governs, this policy has embedded access into planning law mechanisms, has converted policy goals into administrative requirements, and forced alignment between tourism development and public rights. Madam Speaker, this policy has guaranteed windows and corridors to the sea, while clearly stating where Jamaicans have access to the foreshore. Beyond that, the commitment has been made in this House to ensure investment is made in the development of new public beach parks, some of which I know the member from East Central St. James will no doubt mention, including Priory Beach, Madam Speaker. We have some major projects that I would like to highlight, Madam Speaker, under the environmental portfolio, which include the Relief Project launch by the Forestry Department, the Negril Coastline Works and rewetting of the Negril Morass, and of course restoration works at Helshaw, and the development of a river control authority and a keys control authority. Madam Speaker, our forests were decimated by Hurricane Melissa. The Forestry Department has developed a strategic framework for how we will approach helping nature along. I'm happy to report that as at the end of June, we would have replanted some 300,000 trees already, Madam Speaker. There is far greater detail. I encourage colleagues to read same. I want to bring your attention to works that are underway in Negril. We would have completed our design for the canals that will re-wet the wetlands. Now, this is incredibly important even for shoreline stabilization and protecting what is a natural asset that is the envy of the world. That work, in terms of building the canals, member from Western Westmoreland, will commence this year. We also intend to complete our transaction work for the development of what is called an interpretive center in Westmoreland. Now, that will be in the Royal Palm Reserve, which would have been built by Mr. Siaga in the 1980s. We'll be renovating this area and ensuring that indeed we have an area where persons are able to go and study our endemic species, watch birds, and take river tours. Madam Speaker, another focus of ours is ensuring that the regulatory system can indeed be brought to life. That is why the government, through the ministry and indeed NEPA, will be developing a river management authority and a keys management authority that will be housed at NEPA. The river management authority will focus on risk mapping and early warning, sediment and debris management, enforcement against encroachment. The keys management authority is necessary to ensure coordinated management of our keys, which are a sensitive ecosystem, but also incredibly valuable economically. Another area of focus of the ministry under the environmental portfolio, Madam Speaker, is indeed marine governance. The government of Jamaica is focused on ensuring that we stand up the operations of the National Council on Oceans and Coastal Zone Management, and I think in the interest of time, I will bring a ministerial statement for that because of its importance for marine spatial planning, blue economic development, pollution control, and effective ocean governance. Madam Speaker, I'm sure many colleagues are particularly interested in the water section of the portfolio. But if we don't protect the environment, you don't have any water. So, indeed. Let me say this plainly, Madam Speaker. Water is not a line item. Water is the economy. Every sector depends on it. Irrigation for our farmers, industrial and commercial operations, tourism and construction, health, the basic dignity of every household. Without water, there is no economic development for Jamaica. It is for this reason that the Andrew Holness-led administration has been investing in your water supply at a rate not seen since the 1980s and not seen previously to that since the 1940s. I want to begin with something that this House and every Jamaican listening should be proud of. Just days ago at the World Bank spring meetings in Washington, Jamaica stood among only 14 countries in the world, 14 first movers, to launch a national water compact under the World Bank Water Forward initiative. This global platform was launched April 15, 2026. Its ambition is simple but enormous: water security for 1 billion people by 2030. Jamaica's water compact is not a vague aspiration. It is a signed national commitment to achieve universal access to safe, reliable, and affordable water and sanitation by 2030, to reduce non-revenue water, expand sewerage coverage, improve energy efficiency, protect our watersheds, and mobilize $5 billion in sector investment, inclusive of more than $1 billion in private capital. Madam Speaker, the opposition knows this. They spent years in government, and the investment was simply too limited, and it forced the deterioration of the infrastructure. They watched NRW climb, they watched coverage stagnate, they produced studies, held consultations, and left us with infrastructure in some places that had not been replaced previous to the 1940s. We inherited that, and we're fixing it. We formed government in 2016. At that time, less than $1 billion Jamaican dollars was being invested annually in infrastructure this year across MDAs. Across MDAs, Madam Speaker, this year, the government will invest in excess of 15 billion Jamaican dollars. Madam Speaker, water does not begin at a tap. It begins in our rivers, our aquifers, our watersheds. Before a single drop reaches any household or farm, someone must protect that resource, allocate it fairly, and ensure it will still be here for the generation after us. Madam Speaker, the Water Resources Authority was established under the Water Resources Act of 1995. They operate over 100 river gauging stations and hundreds of groundwater monitoring sites across the island. They issue and enforce the licenses that govern how water is drawn from our sources and are the first line of defense against over-extraction, aquifer depletion, and saline intrusion. Madam Speaker, this administration places the WR's mandate at the very center of our reform agenda, because you cannot deliver water security if you are not protecting the resource that makes it possible. Jamaica currently has 830 valid abstraction licenses, with total license volume that exceeds 2.3 billion cubic meters. Actual usage sits at approximately 1 billion cubic meters per year. Madam Speaker, the gap between licensed and used is not evenly distributed across the island. In some of our aquifers, we are already extracting at levels that raise concern. This government is committed to integrated water resource management, not just measuring what we have, but actively protecting it. Our Water Resources Master Plan, tabled in 2022, is now being updated to account for current demand pressures. This is the blueprint that guides where infrastructure gets built, how water is allocated across agriculture, industry, and domestic use, and how we respond to the increased pressure on our sources. Jamaica is committed to having this tool current and operational. Madam Speaker, for note, we are carefully managing our water resources, fully cognizant that water scarcity affects women disproportionately, as many households in Jamaica are indeed female-led. The graphic in front of you shows the relative female population to water source availability. So this also has to guide our investment approach. Madam Speaker, one of the most important things we are doing this year through the WRA is installing technology that allows us to see problems before they become crises. The WRA, in collaboration with the Met Service of Jamaica, is rolling out a long-range, wide-area network called LoRa One in a phased 3-year program. Hundreds of field sensors and network gateways will capture real-time data on groundwater levels, river flows, and rainfall across the island. Even in our most remote off-grid communities, this data will flow into centralized platforms with advanced analytical tools. Decisions are only as strong as the data that informs them, and this initiative ensures that Jamaica is operating with the best possible information in real time. Madam Speaker, we expect this initiative to be transformative, and it strengthens Jamaica's ability to detect early signs of drought, monitor flood conditions as they develop, and respond with greater speed. Madam Speaker, this initiative represents a shift from periodic data collection to continuous real-time monitoring, placing Jamaica in a stronger position to manage its water resources proactively in an increasingly climate-impacted environment. Madam Speaker, we would have seen the need for this in the recent flooding associated with Hurricane Melissa. I want to congratulate the team at WRA for the role that they would have played in informing decisions being made at the national and parish level as it related to flooding, especially in areas such as Content, Chigwell, and indeed Newmarket. Building on the lessons from the recent flood events, including Hurricane Melissa, the WRA is taking decisive steps to strengthen Jamaica's preparedness in some of our most vulnerable communities. To this end, the authority is finalizing a comprehensive project proposal to secure external funding for the establishment of an early warning system in Port Maria, a town that has experienced repeated and severe flooding over the years. While Port Maria is not an isolated case, it is a highly vulnerable community that experiences major flooding every 2 to 3 years, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, monitoring and data will only work if we have the right legal authority to act. It is for that reason the WRA has identified real gaps in the WRA Act, as well as the Floodwater Control Act, and we have commenced our review of that process. It is important to note that we have published the notice inviting submissions of no objection to the amendments we intend to pursue in the Sunday Gleaner published and Observer published on April 26. To note, Madam Speaker, and just briefly, Jamaica has successfully secured the bid to host a second staging of the island's Water Congress, a high-level international forum convened by the International Water Resources Association. Madam Speaker, this Congress will bring international experts and policymakers to our shore and will be held in Montego Bay in December of this year, Madam Speaker. That deals with how you manage the resource generally. Madam Speaker, once the WRA has protected and allocated the resource, the National Water Commission and the Rural Water Supply Limited take it from the source to the tap. The NWC serves our urban and semi-urban communities, and the RWSL reaches the rural communities that the main utility network does not cover. Together, they're the delivery engine of the water sector, and as such, I will outline the plans for the year ahead. Madam Speaker, potable water access currently reaches approximately 90% of households. With this administration committed to 100% by 2030, Madam Speaker, your government is building the infrastructure to meet this aspiration. The NWC currently operates over 700 water supply systems, serving more than 550,000 customers island-wide. On an annual basis, the NWC produces in excess of 322 million cubic meters of water and treats approximately 23 million cubic meters of sewage. The scale of the operation is significant. The challenges within it are equally significant, and the investment required to fix these challenges is what this year's budget seeks to address, as well as budgets to come. Madam Speaker, according to a recent World Bank study, Jamaica requires US $5 billion investment in the water sector to meet this ambition. Madam Speaker, the significant impact of Hurricane Melissa on both infrastructure and operations, the NWC demonstrated strong resilience and responsiveness. The NWC restored water supply to over 90% of customers by December 31st, 2025, and supported by expanded water trucking operations, temporary supply arrangements, and coordinated field interventions. As at April 2026, I'm happy to report, Madam Speaker, that approximately 99% of facilities have been restored to operational status, with the majority reconnected to the national power grid. Ongoing works are being undertaken to address remaining facilities requiring additional intervention and to restore pipelines in remote communities that were affected by land slippage. Madam Speaker, this performance underscores the government's capacity to respond effectively to national emergencies and to maintain service continuity under challenging conditions. That is the result of planning, not an accident. Madam Speaker, I will be direct about one of the most serious structural problems in Jamaica's water sector: non-revenue water. NRW that is produced and treated and pumped but never reaches a paying customer. NRW drives up energy costs, constrains available supply, and makes NWC financially unsustainable if left unaddressed. Madam Speaker, NRW is acknowledged as a crisis that we must fix. The island-wide NRW reduction program is valued at some US $340 million and will be phased over 11 years. It will target reduced NRW from 71% to 30%. It is already in procurement through international competitive bidding. Madam Speaker, Jamaica has an NRW target of 30% by 2035. The annual financial return is clear: $10.7 billion, comprising $7.7 billion in additional revenue at current tariff rates from improved billing and collection, and $2.8 billion in annual electricity savings, and $167 million in chemical cost savings. Madam Speaker, we are already seeing these benefits in Kingston and St. Andrew and Portmore. The case for taking this program island-wide is not complicated. Quite frankly, it pays for itself. Madam Speaker, in the just concluded financial year, the government, through the NWC, made significant strides in expanding access to reliable water services, particularly within rural and underserved communities. Through the implementation of the rural water supply improvement projects, which were valued at $1.1 billion, service delivery and reliability were enhanced for more than 133,000 Jamaicans island-wide. Additionally, approximately 14,000 persons across more than 20 communities gained access to piped water for the first time, representing meaningful progress towards universal service coverage. These communities included Spicy Hill in Trelawney, Lancewood, Shaw Park Heights in St. Anne, Runit, Charlie Gallant and Middle Quarters in St. Elizabeth, sections of Mason Hall in St. Mary, and sections of Orangefield in St. Catherine. Madam Speaker, for those 14,000 Jamaicans, last year was not a policy document. It was the year that water came. Madam Speaker, the government would have also completed and started a raft of projects throughout its agenda, and it is circulated in your varying WhatsApp chats and by email. But I will highlight a few, even understanding the time constraints. We would have completed the Old Pepper to Gutters transmission main at a cost of $331 million. Places like Miketown and Coleyville and Bonita Heights in Manchester would have benefited from investment. Cataboo, Runit, Middle Quarters, Rhine Park, for instance, Rhine Park in St. James would have benefited from $54.5 million, impacting 10,000 residents, Madam Speaker. We would have completed work on the Jacksontown pipeline project, benefiting 2,500 residents, Madam Speaker. We would have completed work on the Port Royal pipeline replacement project with $533 million invested, impacting 2,000 residents. Madam Speaker, we would have commenced the work on the Ferry to Rock Pond pipeline, which will impact 3 constituencies of Western St. Andrew, West Rural St. Andrew, and Northwest St. Andrew. That project is slated to benefit 26,000 residents, Madam Speaker. We would have completed a Castleton pipeline project at a cost of $25.1 million, impacting 3,000 residents. Lancewood pipeline project at $6 million in St. Anne, Madam Speaker. We completed the Jack-Salt to Landover pipeline at a cost of $370 million, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we would have done work in every single parish across the country, Madam Speaker. And whether it was the Kenilworth pipeline in Hanover at $360 million, Madam Speaker, or Kingdom Hall in St. Elizabeth, or the Calder wastewater project in Portland, Madam Speaker, or if you went to the west in Egypt Gardens in Westmoreland, or if you looked at the pipeline replacement in Frome and Bulstrode at $15 million, Madam Speaker, we can go through a long list of projects. And you know, you never want to forget places like Gordonwood in Clarendon or the Newland area of St. Catherine, Madam Speaker. But we could go on, and I see the time ticking. And that's just what was done. We are coming to what is to come. No. Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my apologies, sir. Yes. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the map of major works being undertaken is indeed before us. The NWC continues to enhance its operational capacity through targeted investments and fleet expansion, equipment upgrades, and energy efficiency initiatives. The acquisition of specialized vehicles, including Vectorjet units, pickup trucks, and water trucks, has strengthened the NWC's ability to respond to operational demands. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that these investments in operational efficiency came because the Commission is well run by a solid board. And pre the last financial year with Hurricane Melissa, we had a streak of 3 years with a marginal surplus, the first in NWC's history. Mr. Speaker, the water sector is Jamaica's biggest and single largest consumer of energy. the NWC has seen its electricity bill in 1 month exceed $1 billion Jamaican dollars, Mr. Speaker. Sustainable, that is not sustainable, especially with rising fuel prices globally. The hurricanes we have faced in recent years have made something else clear. Continue. When the power goes down, the water stops. Energy resilience and water security are inseparable. Mr. Speaker, we are fixing it. The NWC and rural water supply are both pursuing targeted investments to bring energy costs down. Rural water supply has continuously worked to integrate renewable energy into water supply systems. For 2025 to 2026 financial year, rural water supply has completed the installation of 3 new locations, one in Freehill, Northwest St. Ann, Bunkers Hill in Northern Clarendon, and New Eden in West Portland. The NWC has advanced its energy management strategy through the completion of several projects, but one I will highlight is the Forest Hills Solar Photovoltaic project valued at $81.5 million, which already in its first year has provided savings of $14.1 million, Mr. Speaker. The energy efficiency projects are on a table being presented for colleagues here. But just in summary, the 13 projects highlighted will be executed at a cost of $885 million, but expect to bring annual savings of $322 million to the National Water Commission, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Rio Cobra water treatment plant, valued at US $92 million, is in construction and will deliver 15 million gallons of water per day by May 2027. To put this in context, in the worst drought recorded in Jamaica in 2022, Kingston and St. Andrew, Portmore and Spanish Town were short 12.5 million gallons a day supply relative to demand. This project will supply that area with 15 million gallons a day. That closes the gap and provides a buffer even in what was our worst drought. And this is on track for completion in May 2027. And remember, yes, the commitment still stands. The commitment to ensure that the community in the area benefits from the extraction and that the water does not bypass the residents of the area. As we would have done in St. Elizabeth at the Pepper Wells, we ensured that the community in and around the area was connected. The commitment stands, ma'am. I come into Sligo. Madam, Mr. Speaker, the Western Water Resilience Improvement Project is the single largest infrastructure program being undertaken by the National Water Commission. It represents a total investment of approximately $170 million in this phase and involves the design and construction of approximately 65 kilometers of new large diameter ductile iron potable water pipelines across 3 strategic corridors in Western Jamaica. Heavy construction commences this week, Mr. Speaker. The project covers 3 critical transmission corridors. The first runs from Martha Bray to Bounty Hall in Trelawney, strengthening water transmission capacity in one of Jamaica's fastest growing agricultural and residential areas. The second runs from Greenwood to Montego Bay in St. James, securing a reliable supply to Jamaica's second largest urban centre and the engine of our tourism economy. The third corridor runs from Lucy to Negril through Hanover and Westmoreland, ensuring dependable delivery to communities along the western coast and to Negril, one of the country's most important and internationally recognized tourism destinations. Together, those corridors serve the 4 parishes of Trelawney, St. James, Hanover, and Westmoreland. This pipeline ranges from 500 to 800 millimeters. It is the largest pipe infrastructure investment since the Yalas pipeline. And, Mr. Speaker, the pipes are currently being cleared at the wharf in Montego Bay. I'm pleased to report that these pipes are indeed here. The WWRIP will directly address the most persistent and consequential challenges facing the water system in Western Jamaica: aging infrastructure, high non-revenue water losses, inadequate pressure, and a network under growing strain from population growth, tourism expansion, and climate variability, have long undermined water security in this region. And though the benefits of this project are well known, my own experience with this project is precisely why my support is firmly behind the NAR bill, which will be debated later today. This was declared an emergency when the pipes ran dry in 2023. And in following the process faithfully, sticking to the law, and working on this day in, day out, including members of the Water Policy Unit and NWC working weekends, it took 3 years to get the pipes here. That is what the current structure took, and that is with complete focus on this project and bringing in experts in procurement and otherwise, just to be abundantly clear. Mr. Speaker, the water storage infrastructure that serves Jamaica today was largely built more than a generation ago. It has served us well, but time and population growth have outpaced it. Our population has expanded, our weather patterns have shifted, and what was adequate then is simply not adequate now. The government, through the NWC, will prioritize investments aimed at improving water storage capacity and system resilience. Central to this effort is a proposed upgrade of the Hermitage Dam, which is estimated at US $250 million, which will involve a comprehensive technical assessment of structural integrity, sediment levels, and eventual capacity enhancements. Complementing this initiative is a planned review which is underway of the Mona Reservoir to determine the appropriate size of an expansion of this facility, as well as necessary rehabilitation works. The third pillar of our capacity increase program is indeed the construction of the Rock River Dam in Clarendon. Mr. Speaker, at the community level, the NWC has identified critical storage tanks which are necessary to strengthen secondary storage and will be expending $7 million this fiscal year to increase storage at points of elevation benefiting communities. Production capacity, Mr. Speaker. The NWC has also enhanced its emergency response capability through the deployment of potable water treatment units, strategic partnerships with private suppliers to supplement water availability during drought conditions and supply disruptions. But, Mr. Speaker, new treatment capacity is also being pursued with the intended development of water treatment plants at Roaring River in Westmoreland and at the Rio Bueno through PPPs, which the government has engaged the IFC, the private sector arm of the World Bank, to work with us to ensure that we get the best competitive offer. We will further complete the engineering and planning works that will allow for the upgrades and expansion of the White River Treatment Plant, the Martha Brae Treatment Plant, the Great River Treatment Plant facilities. This will add some 30 million gallons daily to the North Coast. Mr. Speaker, we intend to pursue the projects associated with national expansion of Jamaica's storage capacity and new production capacity through NAR. This presents the opportunity to truly increase our resilience in the water sector. Mr. Speaker, further critical infrastructure to be undertaken with NAR include the rehabilitation and replacement of the Yalas Negro River raw water pipeline, which will address aging infrastructure and improve supply reliability to the Kingston metropolitan area. Mr. Speaker, colleagues should be aware of the Greater Mandeville Water Supply Project. This is being undertaken at a $2.7 billion cost. This year, we have $517 million slated to be invested. As we continue that project, we expect water losses in Mandeville to go below 50% by next fiscal year, Mr. President, significantly improving space. Now, the capital program, this is where colleagues tend to place a lot of energy and discussion. Hopefully time will allow me to go through as many of the projects as is possible. This year, Mr. President, we will focus on the following systems. Mr. Speaker, the upgrade of the Iterborough Jordan Well systems at a cost of $60 million, and we're nearing completion on this, and this will bring benefits soon. The Black River Town Centre to Arlington Parity Pipeline at a cost of $216 million, Mr. Speaker. We will complete work in Dornoch, Trelawney, and the Barron Hill Reservoir as a replacement at a cost of $86 million. The pipeline work will be a further $106 million. The technical start work for Rock River Low Ground Clarendon is already underway at a cost of $10 million. Sorry? Cheers. The Morant Bay Springfield to Seafort Morant Bay upgrade works will commence at a cost of $320 million. Improvements in the Savannah Lamar Township at a cost of $10 million. South Manchester, Grovetown to Cross Keys, $179 million, Mr. Speaker. Wakefield to Bunkers Hill in Trelawney, Phase 2 at a cost of $90 million, Mr. Speaker. Christiana Spalding, 2 meetings, changing that line at a cost of $13 million. The line to Moravia at a cost of $90 million, members. The Juno Crescent, the completion of the Juno Crescent well development and lines associated with same at a cost of $80 million, Mr. Speaker. The line in Magatti to Newton, that transfer pipeline will be completed this fiscal year at a cost of $44 million. The Rhine Park water supply in St. James, very important line. Procurement is complete. That will benefit from $78.6 million, member. Discovery Bay, Rosemount, Camelot, that line will see $45 million of investment this fiscal year, Mr. President. We will be investing a further $128 million in replacing the pipeline that runs along the Santa Cruz bypass, which has heavy line losses as well. Parnassus well upgrade system is projected to spend $96 million this year. We are doing some work on the Queen Heights system as well. We're doing work in Burnt Savannah at a cost of $84 million. We're doing work on the Grants Level well in Port Antonio at a cost of $10 million. We're upgrading the line in Yallas White Horses at a cost of $102 million, members. Yes, sir, at a cost of $102 million. Yes, member. Madam Speaker, the capital works list is extensive, but I will circulate to members. But there is no parish that is left out. But there are 9 projects that I've pulled out of the sheet, which I think is important to mention. South Trelawney is on a larger capital project, member, so I will come to that in a second. But on the existing capital works, Mr. Speaker, there are 9 projects that have been the source of much social discomfort. And for that reason, we have prioritized works in these areas. This includes upgrades of the West Kingston water distribution, including the lines in Tivoli and Denham Town, which are severely degraded. Upgrades of the Duhaney Park water distribution network, which have been the source of much contention in recent weeks. The St. Benedict's Heights lines, that is a community that was done in Operation Pride and lines never laid, Mr. Speaker. Essex Hall in West Rural St. Andrew, Walker's Wood to Breadnut Hill in St. Anne, Mount Diablo and Top Hill in St. Catherine Northeast, the Sligoville distribution lines, Mr. Speaker, Rose Heights distribution line in Central St. James, and Retreat to Top Hill in Western Westmoreland. These have all been the source of significant social pressure, Mr. Speaker. And the NWC will invest $1 billion cumulatively in these projects over the course of the next 12 months. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to go into geographic information systems and the strength of the residential and MSME amnesty, but I will state very clearly that we have processed over 15,000 customer requests, and the amnesty facilitated over 9,500 customers who were cut off before and facing the burdens of debt, having debt of over $781 million lifted from them and being reconnected. And it is a program that we are particularly proud of, Mr. Speaker. I will do my best to run through pretty quickly. Mr. Speaker, over the last financial year, Rural Water would have completed projects in Rocky Point, Brandon Hill, Bunkers Hill, the Mother Floor System in Manchester, New Eden and Cascade in Portland, Top Road in St. Andrew, East Rural, Free Hill in Northwest St. Anne, Watermount Phase 2 in St. Catherine, and Lapland in St. James. We would have also done works with our schools at the New Gardens Primary School, Aberdeen High School, and indeed Mason Hall Primary School and Richmond Primary School. We would have expended over $450 million in the last fiscal year in closing these projects. In the current fiscal year, Mr. Speaker, just to read very clearly the projects that will be undertaken by the Rural Water Supply Limited through their capital projects, it includes... Yes, sir.
Just for clarity, about how long else do you have?
I can take 5 minutes and highlight the final sets of projects.
Mr. Speaker, I don't want to be playing tit for tat, but the Speaker was very clear. She said that we are allowed our time, plus for the ministers, 15 minutes, and for this side, 5 minutes. We have exhausted the time.
Yeah, I think the member is going to wrap up now. So we'll just ask the member to... We'll ask the member... No, we'll ask the member to go to... We'll ask the member to go to his closing statement. No.
Minister, close.
Madam Speaker, just to announce that the projects that have long been announced and not executed will commence this year in Union Balaclava, Albert Town at the Ulster Springs in Trelawney, the Green Park to Bamboo Line in St. Anne, Mason Hall in St. Mary, Agwater Vale, and Port Morant, investing $36 million US, Madam Speaker. And in closing, last point I'd like to make, because I think it's a central commitment to the residents of Greenwich Farm, we will be closing the cesspool emptying facility, which has long been a source of pain to that community and affected the school, and we expect to start the construction this year. And that, I think that has been too long, and for the members that represent constituencies in Portmore, we've also started the design process for the relocation of the greater Portmore sewage plant, as well as the sewering of many of the communities that have suffered. Sorry for going over time, Madam Speaker. I will finish in ministerial statements at a later date.
Members, while the minister is being congratulated by his colleagues, the central air system is giving some challenges in the Parliament, so you may find that you are a bit warm. No, you may not remove your jacket. The gown is far more than the jackets. The speaker can operate without the gown. The gown is massive, heavy. Members, let me just consult the House. For those who would like to remove their jackets, let me have you vote. Those in favor? Thank you very much. The nays have it. We will... No, I got it. There's no one in favor. House Leader, would you be so kind as to introduce our next speaker?
Marshall, the pointer. Well, the pointer. Madam Speaker, let us firstly thank the Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change. A presentation full of work done, not announcements, work done, and also work that is to happen this year. Excellent presentation. Excellent presentation. We now go to the member from St. Catherine. What is St. Catherine? St. Catherine Northwestern. And Madam Speaker, we are already aware of the time. You will have 30 minutes plus 5 additional minutes. Thank you.
Don't start yet. Your mic is on. I don't see the presentation.
The time for your presentation is in front of you. It's to your right, so that's
no, I
your
don't see
time.
the presentation itself. Green.
You have to start though, you know.
Yes, we did. They're downstairs. She says what? Who haven't received it? We sent that to them from the... Yes, I was sent to the ward. That's not the work. Today. I'm just resend it. Give me
Madam Speaker, I know the member is trying to upload his presentation. We hope that that can happen in quick time, but we are pressed, so we ask the member. Until that happens, the Marshal is trying to sort it out. Until that happens, the member start and the presentation will catch up.
Yeah, man. What is the password? All right, tell me. Yes, I'm doing. Give me it again. Come. ICT, help us. Help desk. Yes. At JA Parliament. JA Parliament. .gov.ja. right, same again. Yeah. I say. We have it done. All right. All right.
Member Crawford, unfortunately, they're still checking and cannot find the presentation. We are giving you 5 minutes from the time you were slated to start at 3:39, after which you would have to start, or we would have to move to the business of the House, continue with the business of the House, and then come back to the presentation.
Okay.
What would you prefer? 5 minutes take you to 3:44. 6 minutes, 3:45. I'll give you another minute. Yeah, you should have started at 3:39. I'll give you 1 more minute, member. Marshall? They're trying to pull it up from a flash drive instead. All right.
Trying to pull it up from a flash. She's giving us 5 minutes. Oh.
All right, Madam Speaker, in light of the circumstances, and as the member seems to require the presentation to follow, we suggest the other approach, that we go forward in public business, continue the debate on NARA, and then we return. There are two options before the House. This either the member starts without the presentation, which has been suggested, but the member has still not started. Right? No, man, that time is up. No, it was
His time started at 3:39 and ended at 3:44, which is 2 minutes.
We're not saying not take the presentation. We're saying it's either the member is ready now.
Ready, man.
Member Crawford, you have elected to commence?
Yes, I will.
Thanks, member.
No problem.
I think your mic went off.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I thank the House for their patience. I would hope that somewhere along in the presentation, we will get the benefit of the audiovisual as we move along. I want to say just a quick thanks to my colleagues on this side and the other for having been cordial with me and also having made me feel welcome back to the House. I want to also acknowledge within the galleries persons, friends of mine from the constituency and otherwise, and also persons in my support. And I want to publicly acknowledge my junior shadow person, or my deputy, newly minted Senator Fames, who is also here and in the gallery. Madam Speaker, I stand here on behalf of the parents, teachers, administrators, and students who are the tenants of the education system, now in the state of progressive collapse. Their experience are not anecdotal. And today, I will play the role of a forensic auditor seeking to understand and examine the structural integrity of the system at every level, to identify and name the specific points of failure, and to determine and hold accountable those who are charged with the management of the system. Madam Speaker, the evidence along the education system of inadequacy is stark and continuous. The evidence of failure is documented, consistent, and undeniable. The causes of failure are structural, chronic, and policy-driven, and the inadequate responses are generally immaterial and has fallen catastrophically short of what is necessary. Failure, as we indicated, Madam Speaker, is consistent across every level of education. The evidence of failure is not isolated and is systematic. I have documented this evidence and is consistent across all levels. Madam Speaker, it is the duty of education to transition our children up each floor and eventually across onto the bridge of productivity and economic participation. However, that failure is stark. The crisis starts at the very top. Jamaica's tertiary enrollment stands at 19% for the ages of 19 to 14. And so for the ages of 19 to 14, only 19% of Jamaicans are currently enrolled in tertiary education. An example can be done for Barbados at 65% and Trinidad at 36%. Within the labor force, only 16% have a tertiary exposure or education. And when one considers our youth that are not in education, employment, or training, it currently stands at 124,000. Madam Speaker, an assessment of our labor force indicates that the vast majority of exposure is at the upper secondary level. And please note I did not say completion, but exposure. The 51% of the labor force have been exposed to the upper secondary level, 5% only to the primary level, 20% at the lower secondary level, and 16% have been exposed at the tertiary level. Madam Speaker, the workforce is indeed moving in the wrong direction. The total labor force, Madam Speaker, has shifted by 12%. However, youth not in education, employment, or training has shifted 31%. Indeed, at this point, Madam Speaker, in 2020, there was 108,000 of those young people not in education, training, or employment. This 2025 was registered at 124,700. Additionally, Madam Speaker, in 2020, tertiary enrollment for 19 to 24 was 22%. It has shifted downwards to now only 19%. Madam Speaker, we have 887 workers without qualification at current. Indeed, the total without qualification in 2020 was 727,000. In 2025 is 887,000. In just 5 years, approximately 160,000 more persons have entered the workforce without qualification. This is larger than some of our parishes' population. Additionally, our men are extremely at risk, as in 2025, 560,000 of the men in employment was without any form of qualification, and for women, 327,000. This, I must point out, Madam Speaker, does not include the 722,000 that is not within the labor force, the set that have withdrawn themselves from seeking opportunity to work. So indeed, if one should assume correctly that the vast majority of those that have given up on the probability of employment would be in the same position as the 887,000 that have no qualification, we have at this point over 1 million persons of the ripe working age that is without any qualification at all. One would therefore be wondering if Hart Trust NTA is coming to the rescue. However, Madam Speaker, the simple answer to that is a categorical no. Indeed, in 2024-2025, Hart NSTA enrolled 137,442 persons. One would be surprised to note that the certification rate of those persons was only 39.3%. Of the 137,422, only 53,669 were certified. This indicates that over 80,000 having been enrolled for that particular year did not achieve the most basic of certification. Madam Speaker, this is a continuation of the assessment by the Auditor General in 2020 that found that the average certification rate for Hart Trust NTA over the 5-year period of assessment was 45%. Madam Speaker, instead of seeking to fix things, the Hart Trust NTA decided to surrender their ambition and indicated that the goal that they had at that time of 70 to 80% certification was indeed, and I quote, a stretch goal, and that they would revise from an internal assessment the expectation to 45 to 50%. Madam Speaker, an analysis of this year suggests that they even missed that particular goal, because we are now at 39%. Madam Speaker, the OECD global average is 62%, and many, many other institutions are way above Jamaica. When you look at this reality, one recognizes that we are facing a serious problem. Now, when we further analyze those that were actually certified, the vast majority was certified at level 2, what is now currently the lowest level of certification, as they have been phasing out level 1. 70% were level 2, 15% were level 3, and 3% was level 4. It made no sense for us to continue from 5 to 8, as the numbers were indeed immaterial. The level 2 are supervised workers that cannot operate without supervision. Madam Speaker, when we go to the secondary floor, it continues. Only 19%. The Lord is good all the time. Page 15. Page 15. And the staff, of course, of the Parliament. Page 15. One more down. Go down. Yes. Next again. Next. All right. So as we can see here, only 1 in 5 students leave with the basic certification that is necessary, equivalent to what the United States call a GED. There would have been an uproar in the United States, member from St. James, appropriately dressed in the national colors, if the GED rate was only 19%. Indeed, if you look at the numbers, because sometimes the percents become misleading, of the 30-something thousand, 34,000 that sat the exam, 6,000 achieved the basic minimum, and 26,000 did not achieve that minimum of 5 subjects, including math and English. Now, if you look, Madam Speaker, that this have been consistent for a while, over a 10-year period, you would have 260,000 that did not achieve 5 subjects, including math and English. To the opposite, you will have only 60,000 that would have achieved this. So, this is 1 year. This is 1 year. Now, next, go next. Yes. It is said, Madam Speaker, that the ministry has therefore sought to disregard and to sell a lie in the conversation moving forward. And this has been proven when we consider math and English, as has been reported by the Ministry of Education, and as is the reality when it comes to the assessment of the numbers. More recently, Madam Speaker, we saw a headline in the newspaper that suggested that improved performance in 2025 CSEC English and Math. There, the minister suggested that Jamaica was outpacing and outperforming the Caribbean. And I would quote, the minister says, regional average is 80% for student pass in English. We have surpassed the region in English A. The region average for mathematics is 39% of students passing mathematics. We are above the regional average again in mathematics, and unquote. However, Madam Speaker, this quote is deeply misleading. A serious assessment of the mathematics passes would have shown the following. 1, the lowest level of enrollment in the last 2 decades. In 2025, enrollment was 32,339 compared to 2023 of 35,768. Of course, one may assume that maybe the birth rate have changed. A quick assessment of a reasonable period for which a 16 or 17-year-old will be doing the exam indicated that only 200 more persons were born in that specific year. So what this is showing is that in 2025, there was less participation of the age cohort in the examination and school process. Secondly, in 2025 was also the lowest in 2 decades sitting, 17,831. And the examiners wanted to assess by suggesting that the pass rate was only for those who sat the examination. This big hullabaloo and grandstanding about moving from 37% to 44% only included 9 additional passes. In 2024, we had 7,817. In 2025, we had 7,826. Indeed, Madam Speaker, while it is that if you look as a percentage of those who sat the examination at 43%, if you look at a percent of those enrolled, our mathematics passes is 24.2%. Now, it must be admitted and added that all our children are to be doing mathematics and English. And so an appropriate assessment would have been of the enrollment at this particular point in time. Madam Speaker, there is also a greater cause for concern because further analysis suggested that approximately 20% of the age cohort were not even enrolled. They had given up on school. And so therefore, while it's 24% of the enrollment, it's 19.3% of the age cohort that passed mathematics. Madam Speaker, this grandstanding of ahead of the Caribbean has been proven untruthful, as the vast majority of the Caribbean countries that we seek to compare enroll more than 70%, 70% of their enrollment sit these examinations. We go further, Madam Speaker, to move to the English language. Again, we would have seen lowest level of enrollment, lowest level of persons sitting the examinations. However, an assessment of those who pass would indicate that of sitting, we are at 85%, but at enrollment, we are at 51.7%. If we go back to the conversation that the minister herself had, that we were almost at 80% as a Caribbean average, that 51% would be far from the Caribbean average. Madam Speaker, is it therefore within our permit to ignore thousands of Jamaican children who would have not been given even the opportunity, as assessed by their teachers, to enter, and then claim that we are improving if we should do a reduction of those who sit and the percent from those who pass? Back up. Madam Speaker, at the primary level, it continues. The 4-grade literacy rate in 2025 indicated 65% at full literacy. This is down from 84% in 2015. Madam Speaker, we're moving in the wrong direction. For English language, at the PEP level, over 10,000 students did not achieve basic proficiency. And in mathematics, almost over 12,000 did not achieve basic proficiency. Madam Speaker, at that level, we found that less than 60% were proficient in all courses. From the age of 12, the failing is evident and prevalent in our children going forward. Madam Speaker, we move to the basement. And here, at the early childhood level, an assessment was done of 4-year-olds to see if they are ready for education. Of the 29,729 that were assessed, only 54% was said to be at the level for ready for education. The other 46% was said not to be at the level for education. Now, Madam Speaker, the assessment of this information goes further, where it indicated that almost 11% did not show up for assessment. So this 29,000 is not indicative of the total number of persons enrolled, as many, about 11%, did not show up to be assessed. The actual assumption that is reasonable is the vast majority of those did not see themselves prepared to be ready at age 4 for education. Madam Speaker, what we have seen in early childhood education is a habit of underfunded and low contributions. Indeed, when one looks at early childhood chronically underfunded, public funding 24.24% of GDP, the international standard is 1%. Fully certified institutions are at 15%, and degree holders, teachers with degrees within the sector, are at 18.7%. Madam Speaker, 4.3 years of learning, the World Bank indicated, Jamaicans have been going to school for 11.4 years, is likely to have effective learning of 7.1 years, indicating that an average student in 11th grade is performing at the 7th grade level because of 4.3 years of learning loss. That actual assessment by the World Bank, same study, indicated that because of inaccess to adequate education and health, approximately the Jamaicans per individual would be 53% as productive when they grow up as if they got the adequate education and the adequate health care. This, Mr. Prime Minister, is where the productivity problem starts and where the productivity solution lies. The actual assessment of these realities have proven that there are certain gaps in the literature that have contributed to this failure. One of those gaps include technology, absenteeism, nutrition, etc. And I indicate here a comparison of Campion and Holy Trinity. Not to disparage Holy Trinity, but to just show the reality. It is certain among all of us, and we will bet a reasonable sum, that the person at Campion, all things held constant, have greater access to technology. We would accept that the person of Campion compared to Holy Trinity is less absent. We would accept that nutrition is more available to the person at Campion. We will accept that teachers and quality teachers are more likely to be constantly and consistently available at Campion. We will accept that Campion students would have much greater access to learning materials, more parent involvement, also highly motivated or a higher level of motivation, and have gotten early exposure. This is where the solution lies, Madam Speaker. Now let's assess what the government has done. In contributing to the technology gap, the government has pronounced and celebrated 3,000 laptops being distributed to 500 primary schools. Now, first of all, it means that about 300 primary schools have gotten no laptop. However, those who got a laptop only got 6 laptops. So, therefore, the schools, to share among themselves, receive 6 laptops each. Now, that assessment have been done here with the different schools and the frequency. Those schools that we have 1 to 100 students, they are getting 18 minutes per laptop. The ones with 100 to 200, they are getting 9 minutes. And if we go to ones with 500 to 1,000, they are getting 3 minutes from the laptop. Go down. Now, further, Madam Speaker, The minister indicated in the Standing Finance Committee that we would have, the target was 30 laptops. Now, the goal is 60 minutes per day. In that assessment, therefore, 235 of the smallest schools, or 10% of our children, would be adequate. However, the other 90% would still, even with the goal, not be adequate. It is taking less time to turn on your phone, to put in your password, than the child will have with a laptop. When it comes to the nutrition gap, we have seen where between 25 and 33% of students arrive at school hungry. That is a research in Jamaica. That between 25 and 33% don't get hungry when they get to school. They arrive at school hungry, leave them yard hungry. We also found 55% food insecurity, 30% skipping meals, and 29% have been hungry for at least one day in that week of assessment. Madam Speaker, what has been the government intervention? Big and bold in the budget was that they were allocating $347 million for basic school nutrition. When one analyzed that there's 111,000 persons currently at the basic school level, at 190 days, this translates to $18.24 per child per day. This is the contribution that the government highlights that they're giving. Additionally, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I'm asking for protection. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the PATH program has over 180,000 children participating on PATH. The government has decided that they will target for breakfast 69,000 students. One assessed the $1 billion that they have allocated. Those 69,000 students, that is not inclusive of approximately 110,000 students who are in need and on path. Those 69,000 have a contribution of $76.26 per day. Madam Speaker, the principals have been concerned, and there have been high levels of quarrel among them for this reality. One of the most recent was that a principal wrote to the teachers that they will only be able to distribute for the rest of the term 3 days per week because it's not sufficient to spend on the entire amount. Madam Speaker, we also suffer from chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is said to be missing 10% of the school year. That's 19 days. We are going as high as 35% in some of our regions, and the lowest region is 18%, that is Kingston. So every single region is in the category of chronic absenteeism. Indeed, in some deep rural areas, we have as high as 55% absenteeism, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they have indicated in a hurricane recovery myth that all our schools are open. However, Madam Speaker, assessment in that suggests that there is hidden absenteeism. What is meant by hidden absenteeism? A child is only perceived absent if he was supposed to be at school. At this point, there are some schools still offering 3 days on and 2 days off to have a rotation of students, causing among the children a learning loss of 40 to 60% because they were not supposed to be at school, not calculated in the absenteeism numbers. Indeed, the newspaper indicated that in St. Elizabeth, over 400 students were still not found. But if you don't only read the headline, you will see further down where the police himself indicated we went into a very small sample to collect information, and we reached 400 before we went into the large sample. Indeed, despite the Ministries of Education pronouncement, the president of the Students' Council Association for that region indicated that in and over St. James, St. Elizabeth, and Manchester, they were observing less than half the usual capacity in the classrooms. This is what we are going, Madam Speaker. As we move forward, we see Region 1 is 18%, Region 2 is 20%, 3, 18%, Region 4, 28 to 34%, Region 6, 35%. Every single region is in the phase of chronic absenteeism. Madam Speaker, there has been a reality that absenteeism leads to dropout. And the research done by the World Bank have indicated that at the different levels of education, we can are attending or enrolled. At the upper secondary, 58%, because more and more they have dropped out. Madam Speaker, when we go down and look at some of the reasons for this dropout, we see that 41% of the boys simply said they're no longer interested. Now, if we should look at the total number between 2010 and 2017, you will realize that there's an increase in the number that just don't want to attend school. There is a decrease in the value of education in that period of time. In 2010, 90% said they simply didn't want to. In 2017, 32% said they simply didn't want to. When we look at our boys, they are the ones that clearly don't want to. But look at our girls. 49% had to drop out because of pregnancy. This is a major problem that we have to consider, Madam Speaker. And to this, of the total female dropout, teen pregnancy, Madam Speaker, has become a problem in this country. Indeed, the average as recorded by the Jamaican institutions is 6,000 per year. Madam Speaker, if one looks at the reality that there is approximately 13 years of education between age 6 to age 17, we will recognize that in school at this time, 78,000 children are children of children in school at this particular point in time, looking at the rate of 6,000 per year. Madam Speaker, we therefore are asking for a reconsideration once again of the age of consent, and I once again believe that this Parliament should consider the movement from 16 to 18 as we move from a 5-year secondary institution to a 7-year secondary experience going forward. Madam Speaker, we have to protect our children. And to that extent, Madam Speaker, we're asking for these things to be considered. Madam Speaker, the government response have been failed bus system. They have also impacted negatively the teachers' ownership of vehicles, despite the insistence that the principals and the guidance counselors should move into these areas to interface with the children and get them back. There has been no increase in the PATH program. Madam Speaker, there is an exodus of teachers moving out of school. 10 years ago, 350 resignations in that year. In 2022, 1,800 resignations in that particular year. Madam Speaker, additionally, 145 math teachers resigned in 2022. That's 10% of the math teachers that are available to the system. Madam Speaker, the government has failed with no retention plan. They have also insulted our teachers with a 2% increase proposal, simply have replaced the 1% NHT, and also they have not considered the band that the teachers were assigned by Ernst & Young to put those persons from band 4 to band 5. Madam Speaker, we don't have to discuss safety because we have seen the level of safety concerns within our schools. Madam Speaker, as it relates to early childhood, it has been proven that the returns on a $1 investment in early childhood is up to $17 for an investment in $1 of early childhood. A longitudinal study in Jamaica indicated that 25% additional earning for those at the age of 22 once they accessed early childhood education. And at the age of 31, they were earning 43% more than those who did not access early childhood education. Madam Speaker, they earn more, they are significantly less likely to engage in crime. Minister Chang, transitions more smoothly through the entire system, are more likely to attend school consistently. They build cognitive foundations for lifelong learning, and also they are more likely to complete their education. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Education has sought to paint over these cracks and indicated that only 108 early childhood institutions did not have a degree-trained teacher. One access to the census done by the ECI, the Institute, the Early Childhood Institute, indicated that only 1,518 and 658 are sure not to have a trained teacher. One wonders, therefore, where did we get that information of 108? Now, this trained teacher must also be established to be an exaggeration because most are diploma trained, despite the government's insistence that they should be degree trained. Additionally, the permanent secretary from the Ministry of Education indicated that they were investing $38 billion in early childhood education when the budget before us indicated only $8.5 billion. So one must wonder where they're getting this. Of the Constitution, the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedom indicate that it is the right of every child who is a citizen of Jamaica to publicly funded tuition in a public education institution at the pre-primary and primary levels. Madam Speaker, that has not been assessed. And therefore, when the Minister of Education answered in the Standing Finance Committee that she believed that this was actually being implemented, it left me with no further action to take than to seek the court's intervention to determine if this right has been satisfied. Madam Speaker, the system failure is stark. Underfunding is a breach of the Constitution. Of 30% to 90% are being absent is a breach of the constitutional right. And to that extent, Madam Speaker, on the 7th of April 2026, I filed a constitutional challenge on behalf of the people of Jamaica, and today we are seeking to inform the government that we will be seeking a constitutional assessment on if the right to a free primary at a free institution is being actually distributed to our children. Madam Speaker, in a just society, education is not a privilege to be managed. It is a right to be guaranteed. It is the true intention of the members on this side to place children at the heart of the Jamaican future. Madam Speaker, in 2011, we reached across the aisle and established the right. I believe in 2026 we should once again reach across the aisle and ensure that the right is actually implemented. Madam Speaker, we are not here only to celebrate its existence, but we want to implement that right in full. Madam Speaker, what we have presented is a clear and present reality that the failures in education gets worse under this government, and that there must be an intervention for our children to once again become the center of development in the Jamaican situation.
House Leader.
Madam Speaker, we thank the member for staying within the time limit for the presentation. And I am sure the presentation will be the subject of significant review. But we thank the member for his contribution. And his final slide about let's go together is a good note to end on and to move into the continuation of the debate around the National Reconstruction Authority. Let us go together. Madam Speaker, as we are in public business, we are going to continue the debate on the National Reconstruction Authority. I know that there are some members who have indicated. I know, so no, we're going to continue. We're in public business now. We had suspended the agenda to come to public business. Under public business, we're going to continue. We're going to continue the debate on NAR. So I'm going to ask, Madam Speaker, that we suspend the sectorial debate until next week. Let's suspend the sectorial.
So members, just for your information, there is nothing in respect of the agenda items for today that would prevent us from continuing in public business with the debate on the NAR bill. We now ask that the House approve the suspension of the sectoral debates to continue next week. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I was indicating, we will further on recommit other matters of the agenda. But as we are in public business and those matters don't touch and concern the NAR bill, we want to continue the debate to closing and take the NAR bill through all its stages today. So the members who have not yet participated, who intend to participate, they can indicate so that
House Leader, I have asked both leaders of opposition business and the leader of government business to provide the names of the members who are expected to participate today in the debates in respect of the NAR bill. And I've also asked for a sequence so that it is far more orderly. So I will start with the opposition. The first member on the opposition side slated to speak is the member from Westmoreland Eastern.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me begin by making one thing absolutely clear. On this side of the House, we do not oppose reconstruction. We do not oppose resilience. And we certainly do not oppose urgent action for the people of Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, and all the other parishes that are recovering from Hurricane Melissa. What we oppose firmly, responsibly, and unapologetically is construction without safeguards. Because, Madam Speaker, history teaches us that when large sums of money, emergency powers, and weak oversight converge, the result is not efficiency, it is risk. Risk of nepotism, cronyism, victimization, maladministration, and rampant corruption. The core problem, Madam Speaker, is a gap between promise and law. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister delivered his presentation, and in his presentation he spoke about transparency accountability, independent oversight, and national unity. But this House is not voting on a speech. We are voting on a law. And when we examine the law, the bill before us, we see a troubling pattern. Many of the safeguards described in the Prime Minister's presentation are not in the bill. So, Madam Speaker, because I realize that there are issues about the presentation and the bill, I decided to examine both carefully. And in looking at it, I went to the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons because we are being asked to just follow some things blindly. And I am not willing to do so because I have seen persons oppose even those things which are not disputable. For instance, I am happy today to read the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons to see that we have finally decided that the hurricane actually made landfall in New Hope in Westmoreland. It took us months to agree that Westmoreland was where the hurricane made landfall. Months. Several reports said that it made landfall in Black River, which then affected how resources were mobilized. There are several records to show.
On a point of order.
Several records to show that.
No, listen. On a point of order.
Several reports.
The member.
Several reports.
The member is misleading the House. There was no official report emanating from any authorized agency of government that indicated that the hurricane made landfall outside of New Hope. The member is misleading the House to give the impression, as he has said, that a wrong pronouncement was made and the resources followed suit. That is incorrect, and the member should withdraw.
Madam Speaker, several persons. I can make my presentation today, and there is nobody in here that can tell me that I can't make my presentation. So look here. Don't start with that. Don't start with that. You know, Madam Speaker, point of order about what? The same thing that he said?
Madam Speaker, we can't move on without addressing this point. He said, we said, which suggested that that we can send for the answer. He said, we said many times that the hurricane made landfall, and went on to say we said the hurricane made landfall in Black River. That was never said, because it's just factually inaccurate. So the member can continue, but he cannot mislead the House on the point.
Madam Speaker, the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons said that the hurricane traversed the island, resulting in catastrophic loss and damage to lives, livelihood, economic, social, cultural, and environmental systems. It went on to say that the hurricane damage is estimated at $12.2 billion. Now, a GIS article in November of 2025 said that redwellings, we had damage to 156,000
and that 24,000 of them were totally lost. I have looked throughout this bill, Madam Speaker, about reconstruction, and I am yet to find the section that speaks about the reconstruction of the 156,000 houses that were damaged and the 24,000 that were destroyed. Significant housing loss. We came here and the Minister of Energy made a point that we needed to mobilize resources to get resources to JPS so that we could have electricity returned to the residents by the end of February. Today is the 28th of April 2026, and over 2,500 residents in Eastern Westmoreland are still without electricity.
Madam Speaker, the member is misleading the House. If you look at Hansard as to what I said, February 28th, save and accept for those areas that had specific challenges. He failed to add that. And I can say, Madam Speaker, I can say that as of today, we are at 99.6% with under 2,000 people still without electricity to be done in the month of April to May. So, if you're going to quote me properly, please.
You know, Madam Speaker, I'm not here to pick a fight with the Minister of Energy. I'm not. No, I'm not. Madam Speaker, when you say 99.6% of the country has been restored, the report that I got a week ago, and the Minister said at a press conference a week ago, that there were approximately 3,000 residents without electricity, and that 2,561 of them are from Westmoreland. The report from the CEO of JPS is that 2,561 residents from Eastern Westmoreland are without electricity. So, I don't understand how that is becoming a controversial matter. The hurricane made landfall in the constituency, devastated the constituency, and we have seen no priority attention in there to get back electricity to these persons. And when we have this bill, I am taking this bill.
Madam Speaker, there can only be one Minister of Energy at a time. And that happens to be me.
Hold on. I cannot hear you at all. Members. Go ahead, Minister. I could not hear a word.
Madam Speaker, there can only be one Minister of Energy at a time. And it so happens that that happens to be me at this particular moment. I am going to read from a report of the 26th to show that he's misleading the House. He's misleading the House. As of today's date, it is 99.71% restoration. Westmoreland is at 94% with 1,937 persons still without electricity. And in St. Elizabeth, 80. This is a report that I got hours ago today from the Jamaica Public Service. So you can't say that the managing director of JPS giving you a different report than he's giving me. You are wrong, and you must admit it and stop misleading the House.
Madam Speaker, am I going to be allowed to make my presentation?
Members, if a point of order is raised and the person who is on their feet debating wish to respond to the point of order, I'm going to... hold on, no. You're missing the point, member, and I won't name you. It is for the benefit of the person who is on their feet so they don't lose time. So member from Westmoreland East and others who will speak after, when a point of order is raised, if you would like to respond to it, please signal, because that way your time does not continue to run. I do not want you to lose time in the debate. If you are not responding to the point of order, then your presentation continues.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to be abundantly clear. The report that I got from the CEO just over a week ago stated that you have 2,561 customers in eastern Westmoreland that are without electricity. That is the report that was given. If you simply go to Google and type in VAS electricity 2,561, it will come up. Now, the point I am making, Madam Speaker, is that I want to support this bill because the people in the constituency have been devastated. But I want to see in this bill the reconstruction for the people in eastern Westmoreland. The small business operators whose businesses were built in the same way that their houses were built also lost their businesses. The small farmers down there, the shopkeepers who need electricity to refrigerate their items, they don't have it. And I am not seeing that in this bill, and that is what I want to see in there. How it is that we are going to impact on the small people in eastern Westmoreland who are suffering. Today being April 28th is exactly 6 months since the passage of the hurricane. And we still have these persons without the basic commodity. You know, Madam Speaker, I came today, I came prepared because I knew this was going to happen. I came with my Bible, I came with my Bible. I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I came prepared because I knew it was going to happen. And I want to turn it, Madam Speaker. Proverbs 1 verse 10, Madam Speaker. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. I am not consenting today to the disruption that is coming from over there. No consent today. No. Madam Speaker, the priority program of the government to deal with the housing situation is the roofs program. The roofs program, Madam Speaker, has left a lot of persons without receiving any assistance. But I'm not even going there yet, Madam Speaker. I'm talking about those who have received something. First thing is that if we are talking about reconstruction and resilience, how is it that somebody would have lost their entire home, which is what severe represents in the roof program, and the allocation is $500,000? Who can rebuild a house with just $500,000? Who can rebuild a resilient house with just $500,000? There is absolutely nothing that speaks to that in this. And members whose constituencies were not affected can say whatever they want to say. When you travel across eastern Westmoreland and the parish of Westmoreland, several homes still have tarpaulin on them. Several homes still have tarpaulin on them. Right? Now, Madam Speaker, up to this morning, I got a call up to this morning, an individual who receives
Members.
a grant.
Minister, before you make your point of order, members, Deputy Speaker, members, I am not going to interrupt. I am not going to interrupt unless I am asked for the protection by the member. I will allow you to continue your debate. So where a member needs my intervention in today's debate, you ask for it. No, that's what I am definitely doing, member. No, not at all. Especially the member who doesn't need my protection. Members, in addition, let me help you with appreciating what happens for the general public. For the general public, the members who are seated behind the presenter who are shouting in the mic, you actually disturb their presentation, particularly in respect of the public listening because of how the mic system operates, far more than persons who are further away. So, just for our understanding, when the noise comes from both sides of the House, and particularly when it comes from close to the person presenting, you significantly disturb the presentation of the member closest to you. Now, there is a point of order being raised. Minister Charles, are you member? Point of order?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was trying my best to listen to the full sentence from the member, but as
I'm not hearing you well. You have to project because...
I'm saying I was trying my best to listen before I call for the point of order to see if the sentence in completion would have not misguided the country. But when the member gives the impression that the roofs program was meant to provide all or rebuild all, it will mislead the country. Allow me. And why I say so, why I'm saying so, Speaker, is when you say that that cannot rebuild, you will give somebody who's listening the impression that that was the intention of the government when we have other programs under the shelter recovery that provide full solutions, right? So the roofs program is never meant to be a full solution. There are other elements of the shelter recovery program that do so. It's very important then that the member not mislead the country with his utterances. Thank you, please.
Madam Speaker.
Would you be so kind to turn your mic back on? Once you have intervened, please turn your mic off. I'm trying not to turn off the mic of the presenter.
Madam Speaker, I'll move on. The point I am making, and I am being very clear about the point that I'm making. If the roofs program was not intended to address the 156,000 persons that had damages to their dwelling, or the 24,000 that have total loss, then it would mean that those people, their reconstruction would need to be in this bill. And that is the point that I'm making, that if we are discussing reconstruction and resilience, then the housing damage that was suffered, which is a significant percentage of the $12.2 billion US, then that must get priority attention in the bill that is on reconstruction. Now, I got a call today, Madam Speaker, and the individual was complaining that they haven't gotten anything from roofs. And so I checked with the ministry. And when I checked, the ministry said that the person already benefited from a program through TEF. So I checked as to how much did the person benefit from TEF. The person got $100,000 worth of material. And based on that, the person is ineligible to benefit from the roofs program. Which means this individual who suffered total loss to their dwelling and under the roofs program would have qualified for $500,000. Because they got $100,000 a tourism worker, they now become ineligible to benefit from the roofs program. That is something that must be addressed.
Yes. Yes.
There is actually a difference between politics and governance, Madam Speaker. When I'm on the political platform, I am one of the most strident politicians you will find, making my political point. But when I'm in here, Madam Speaker, I'm talking about the governance and how the lives of the people that I represent are being affected. Now, Madam Speaker, this contradiction between the PM's presentation and the bill is seen in several places. Oversight is promised, but is not legislated. We were told that there would be an independent oversight body, JAMROC, modeled after EPOC. We were told it will provide public accountability, independent scrutiny, and even opposition representation. But, Madam Speaker, JAMROC is not in the bill. The PM claims robust independent oversight, but the bill does not create it. There is no statutory body with the appropriate governance structure. And if you look at the PM's presentation, the PM took the opportunity to point out some examples. He said that after the Great East Japan earthquake of 2011, Japan established a dedicated reconstruction agency. What he did not tell us is that it had a board. He then went on to speak about Dominica established the Climate Resilient Execution Agency, CREED. What he didn't tell us was that it had a board. Then he went on to speak about in Jamaica, former Prime Minister Percival James Patterson, the great man from Eastern Westmoreland, established the Office of National Reconstruction after Hurricane Ivan. When he did so, Madam Speaker, he wanted a non-political individual to chair the committee. And he decided that he was going to second someone from the EOJ. And so he seconded none other than Danville Walker, who ended up not being non-political after all, because he contested the election in central Manchester. But he chaired it. There was no overreach. They had a committee that had representation from the PNP, from the JLP, from NGOs, from private sector, and they had to get approval for the projects that they were doing. So to just give the examples without speaking of the governance framework that was behind those examples is misleading. Now, there is no legal requirement for independent monitoring, no reporting schedule, no obligation to publish oversight reports. Instead, what the bill says, it says that the minister may give direction to the authority, and the authority shall comply. Madam Speaker, that is not independent oversight. That is executive control. As the House is being asked to rely on executive assurances instead of legislative safeguards. You cannot ask Parliament to pass hard powers into statute and accept the soft safeguards on trust.
That's right.
There is a concentration of power in the executive. Madam Speaker, let us examine the structure being created under this bill. The PM appoints the CEO. The minister determines the CEO terms, remunerations, and conditions. The minister can issue binding directions. The cabinet determines which projects proceed. The authority cannot implement plans without cabinet approval. And critically, there is no governing board. Clear accountability without independent oversight is not accountability. It is concentration of power. It is heavy ministerial and cabinet control over appointment, approvals, direction, project flow. What the government calls streamlined accountability may in practice become streamlined political control. Reprocurement. This is possibly the most serious omission. Madam Speaker, let us turn to procurement, the single most sensitive area in any reconstruction program. The Prime Minister himself admitted that the procurement framework is not in the bill and will instead be created by ministerial order. This is the Prime Minister. On the specific question of procurement, the procurement framework for NARA is not incorporated in the bill itself. It is the government's intention that the Minister of Finance will issue an order under Section 3, Subsection 3 of the Public Procurement Act 2015, exempting NARA from the standard procurement regime and specifying the particular terms and conditions that will apply to NARA's procurement activities. End of quote. Madam Speaker, let us pause right there. Parliament is being asked to create the authority, grant it power to spend billions, allow it to procure goods, works, and services without knowing the procurement rules that will govern those contracts. No tendering principles, no publication requirement, no conflict of interest provision, no mandatory disclosure framework for awards. After, as the member from South Manchester said, the House should not approve a blank check without guardrails. Extra, yes, you don't hear the quotation. You don't hear the quotation. There are extraordinary powers to override existing laws. Madam Speaker, the bill will not merely coordinate, it overrides. It allows the authority to direct agencies on how to process approvals, impose deadlines, require concurrent approvals, proceed without waiting on other approvals, and even modify or make exception to zoning requirements. And if agencies resist, the authority can apply for a step-in order, where the minister effectively grants the approval himself with full legal effect. Madam Speaker, speed is necessary, but speed must not also a process that remains internal to the executive. There are transparency claims. The authority will operate with unprecedented transparency. But what does the bill actually require? One, a register of projects and the obligation with criminal penalties for disclosure. There is no requirement to publish procurement awards, no requirement to publish contracts, no requirement to publish step-in decisions. Performance dashboard. Madam Speaker, a registry is not transparency. Member from St. Andrew North Central. The FAST program, Madam Speaker, that is narrowly tailored disaster recovery is a broad investment fast-track regime. Madam Speaker, we are not here to block progress. We are not here to statutory oversight. There should and publications duties, guarantee opposition participation, and require semi-annual public reports. The procurement safeguards in law of all major contracts. With transparency, mandatory provision of project list and update, procurement awards, directive issues, the parliamentary oversight. There should be mandatory semi-annual reports to Parliament, not in closing, Madam Speaker, the bill is being presented as a vehicle for national transformation, and it may very well be. The country needs speed, yes, but the country needs safeguards. If Jamrock is essential, put it in the bill. If those measures are truly essential, they should be written into the legislation before Parliament passes it. Checked power. We do not support rebuilding on a weak governance foundation. Let us not just
We'll take next the member from St. Andrew West. The member from St. Andrew Southwest.
I was within the time and certainly on point on the few points I wanted to make. And so I've actually written it. My responsibility as a member elected to this Parliament by the people of Southwest St. Andrew, and my responsibility to ensure I went and I looked at the objects of the bill. Consequent on the passage of Hurricane Melissa and for resilience generally. And this has my full support. Extremely concerned that such an important institution having with a blank check and unfettered powers. And that also there are very weak provisions for transparency and accountability. Being railroaded through Parliament by a government who has no problem in 2017, yeah? Agreeing to 400 without any accountability. Even now, not a soul know where they carry them there. The same government with the ministers spending money on the costing more with no real accountability for distribution. Anybody here remember CMU and how taxpayers' money was being those? Yeah, man, that was the used car scandal we talked about. The same issues, serious procurement breaches, contract bidding rules being breached. Who remember Western Hospitality Institute, yeah? That many thought was a eat a food prosperity thing go on. So when all that in most of the cases I've cited, what the Auditor General's recommendation was. It was about adherence to public procurement law. So you can ignore the transparency and you can ignore procurement laws. Several times talking about the issues with procurement. And I have no difficulty if we believe that there needs to be changes, yes? See that at work in this bill that is